So with the previous video, we actually finished the production of urine, which is, as in the previous videos, we talked about urine basically contains a lot of water. It contains salts, ions, salts / ions, urea, some oxalates, urea, which is a metabolic byproduct of the breaking down of proteins, as well as nucleic acids. Now we're going to look at hormonal controls of the urinary tract system. There are a couple of hormones we're going to talk about: angiotensin, aldosterone, and antidiuretic hormone. You all have heard of this word, diuretic. If you take a diuretic pill, you tend to pee more. So this is antidiuretic, hence the opposite of making you pee more. For example, coffee is a diuretic. If you drink a lot of coffee, you tend to go to the bathroom a lot more. Alcohol is also a diuretic. It's the opposite of antidiuretic. The control center for the urinary tract system is in the cerebral cortex. All these hormones are produced in the pituitary gland from a response from the hypothalamus. So in the brain, it's in the cerebral cortex. The parts that we're going to talk about is the cerebral cortex, the hypothalamus, and the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus is also considered to be one of the most primitive parts of your brain. You share it along with every organism down the line. That's where your thirst center is, something that tells you you're thirsty. That information comes from your hypothalamus. So antidiuretic hormone is a hormone that acts. In the previous chapters, in the previous videos, we talked about exocrine and endocrine hormones. Antidiuretic hormone affects directly to the collecting duct. Remember, it's a lumen. If it is a lumen, let me get that. Oops. No. There. So a duct is going to be a lumen. On the inside, we talked about how it is a epithelial tissue. The diffusion portion of it is taken care of by the epithelial tissue. The diuretic hormone directly affects the permeability of the epithelial tissue. The word permeable, it makes it more permeable for water. So it allows the water to move in this direction into the interstitial fluid, which is here. And so in the next few slides, there's a diagram that helps you understand this better. Let me go put the whole thing up. Right. So let's start from this portion. The blood osmolarity. Molarity is basically solute over a liter of solvent. Osmolarity is looking at, it's the same thing. How many particles of solute do you have per liter of solvent? Solvent here being water. Solute can be formed blood particles, ions, different other chemicals, heavy chemicals in your system. When I say chemicals, I don't mean like you have cyanide in your system. I just mean chemicals from the periodic table. So if your body reaches about 300 millimoles per per liter, that is pretty high. So the osmolarity of your body has increased. So you've become a little more hypertonic. One of the reasons for this could be that the stimulus, or the reasons for that could be that you've been sweating. It's a hot day. You've been sweating profusely. You're losing a lot of water. This change in osmolarity sends a signal to the hypothalamus. It triggers the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus sends you a signal of, the hypothalamus basically is sending you a signal of thirst. It also sends a signal to the pituitary gland to release the ADH. I'm going to follow this track once again. So the osmolarity of your blood increases. That means there is more solute per liter of solvent. This could be the stimulus for that. Stimulus is an external signal, external cause because of this happen. Increase could be that you've been sweating profusely, you're working out, it's a hot day, you've been drinking a lot of alcohol, so you've been peeing a lot. It could be a lot of things. That sends a signal to your hypothalamus, which sends two signals simultaneously. One signal to you saying that you're thirsty and you should drink water. The second signal is to your pituitary gland that releases ADH. So now let's follow the first signal here. You are you have a signal that says you're thirsty. Your throat is parched. So then you go get a glass of water. When you drink water, basically you have, so remember, osmolarity is solute divided by solvent. So by drinking water, you have now increased the solvent level. So you've reduced the osmolarity to a set point. After that point, you're not thirsty anymore. You don't drink any more water. That is one effect that causes this to happen. And brings the osmolarity back up to the set point where it should be. The second thing it does is that it increases the permeability of the collecting duct itself. The water that should become eventually pee instead is reabsorbed into the interstitial fluid. Again, the osmolarity technically decreases because solute over solvent, right? Or osmolarity further increases. The actual number goes down because the denominator is the number that goes up. So I hope that's clear. There are a couple of things. Remember, we talked about the fact that I think in the previous chapters we talked about things where it's called endocrine and the exocrine system. Within the collecting ducts in the outer membranes of the collecting duct, there are ADH receptors. The hormone ADH is released. It finds that receptor, locks into the receptor. The receptor has a secondary messenger messenger molecule called CAMP. CAMP is a very interesting molecule. There's ATP. ATP, when it breaks down, it's adenosine triphosphate. It breaks down, releases energy, becomes ADP. ADP is adenosine diphosphate, and this can be further broken down into AMP, which is adenosine monophosphate. When this becomes a monophosphate, this has a negative charge right there because it's a phosphate. And here there is nitrogen with 3 bonds, so it has a positive charge. So it kind of attaches that way. So it becomes a cyclic AMP, camp. Cyclic mono adenosine monophosphate. Cyclic adenosine monophosphate is basically the secondary signaling molecule throughout your body. And then you have storage vesicles that are that carry the water. If you go back to your chapter in cells, you'll realize that vesicles are basically broken off of the Golgi apparatus. And we have talked about some of them have channels. These channels that are dedicated for water are called aquaporins. So these aquaporin vesicles go then attach themselves to the membrane. So they kind of fuse with the membrane itself, and then water is sent out into the interstitial fluid via exocytosis. Exo, outside, cyto, cell, cis, process of sending something outside the cell is exocytosis. And this is a vesicle mediated process. Without ADH, it's a simple diffusion. At the loop of Henle, it's a simple diffusion that's happening. In the collecting duct, there has to be some kind of secondary signal that sends the water out. In this case, it's an exocytosis process. It increases the permeability to aquaporins, allowing water to come in and out. Obviously, because the concentration of water is still greater here than here, water does go in to the channel, but it's pumped out immediately. What might the effect of alcohol be on water balance? Alcohol affects your pituitary gland, and it reduces the amount of ADH that is produced in your system. So alcohol essentially has a lot of water in it. So the osmolarity of your, the amount of water in your system goes up. The solute concentration goes down. So you tend to pee a lot. That means the effects are, the opposite of the antidiuretic hormone. If antidiuretic hormone is being pumped into your system, then you don't pee as much. Your pee is more concentrated and you have more salts in your pee, but water is conserved. However, if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, and it does the opposite of the antidiuretic hormone, because it affects how much antidiuretic hormone is being pumped into your system, even though alcohol is doesn't have the same solute concentration as balanced water. Now, ADH is also one of those hormones that controls your blood pressure. For example, if you're shot and you're losing a lot of blood, your blood pressure begins to drop, so your osmolarity begins to go down. So the pituitary gland starts pumping ADH, and your body tries to conserve every bit of water it has, because essentially blood is water, right? It tries to conserve every bit of blood you have. You've heard of people getting shot and they poop their pants, but they will not pee their pants. Their body will not allow that wastage of water. So it does. So once you get shot and the blood pressure starts dropping because you're losing blood, the antidiuretic hormone is pumped and the body tries to conserve. It basically tries to suck up water from anywhere possible. So this is the next one. I'm going to put this in the next video just because it's going to be, it's more complicated and I don't want to break it up into parts. So.